All right, everybody, welcome back to Constricted and Addicted. I am Gary, and this is Retic Rant. Tonight, we have an extra special series happening called Keeper Spotlight, and tonight is like it's what a way to start this episode off. We have Abby, the curly-haired keeper, and Jody, the bald one too. And the bald one too. You guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening and joining us on this. It's how you guys doing tonight? You guys you're not in Baltimore anymore. You moved and now you're still on the East Coast, but you're in a different spot. You moved to a bigger house because you got more reptiles, right?
We did, yes.
That's a chicken or the egg situation.
So,
we're in Pennsylvania now, so still East Coast time.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So, just to where did you guys start off with reptiles? I mean, what was your very first reptile? And how old were you when you had your first reptile?
So he started before I did because you had an anole in college, right?
Yeah, I guess sophomore year of college, I got a little green tree anole from the local PetSmart, which was fun, but there was this was 1999, 2000, somewhere in there. So
husbandry information was lacking.
We know a lot better now than we did then.
Yeah, and I've always loved reptiles, but I always used to do just like the crazy 90s kid hunting for garter snakes in the ditch bank when I was little. Right. I didn't actually technically own my first reptile until we got Ivy in 2021. So lots of experience with other animals, but reptiles specifically started in 2021.
A herper before a keeper, I guess.
Yeah.
And Ivy is your rainbow boa, correct?
Yes, good memory. Yeah, she's our Colombian rainbow boa.
And if memory serves me correctly, you went from Ivy to Tui, right?
Twee,
yeah. Twee, yes.
Yep. Ivy, Twee was our second, and then Aries was our third.
Yeah. So, and you've been. How many reptiles do you have currently in your collection?
21 snakes. 2 lizards.
I thought we were down to 19 because I thought 2 of the babies were. We're trying to keep track. We had a bunch of babies go to their new homes recently, so
we still have 10 babies.
Okay,
maybe 9. And I think 10. I just fed them on Wednesday, so I had to count out feeders. I think it was 10.
Yeah, so 21 total. 21 snakes. We have our rhino iguana, and his leopard gecko. Yeah.
So it's been such a journey to watch the two of you go from essentially when I started following you when you had Ivy, you didn't have Twee yet, and then what it has morphed into today, right? So you went and then you got Twee, which was your I can't remember the morph. Twee's a boa constrictor, but what is she or he?
So he is, I'm honestly impressed you remember like the order of things. Yeah. He is a VPI Paws Snow.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So you went to the boa constrictor, and then what ledge was it that said, I'm going to retics? Because retics are for special people, right? And you guys are special people. You are definitely people that not only deserve to own retics, but really are mentors for people that want to own retics. I mean, you guys have put such a positive energy and such positive light on retic keeping in the time that I've known you. But there's also, it's like you get a boa constrictor and you go, okay, I want a retic, and it's like there's this bridge we jump off of, right? So what was it? What was that deciding factor that made you go to the world of reticulated pythons?
I mean, part of it was you, because you were one of the first retic keepers that I kind of connected with over Instagram, and you had such a great like interactive relationship with all of yours, and I thought that was amazing. But actually, before I got Ivy, I was looking into either a carpet python
python, yeah.
or a retic as like a super dwarf retic as my first snake. So I was already interested in them from the get-go. So after getting Ivy, after getting Twee and really enjoying those guys, I was like, all right, I really want to jump in and give a retic a try. So I reached out to JP. JT?
JB.
Can't remember.
I don't remember.
Underground Exotics was his handle. I don't think he's super active on Instagram anymore, but he had won Aries in a fundraising auction from Brian over at Hell Creek, and he didn't want to keep him, so he was selling him and doing a 50-50 profit split, donating half of it to US Arc. So I was like, well, that's a good enough excuse to get a snake or get a retic. So I wound up with Aries, and that was like the best decision ever because Aries is amazing.
Yeah.
I think any animal that you have in your collection is amazing. And the way that you interact with your reptiles is second to none. I don't think I can pin anybody that has the same interaction level with their animals that you do. And I want to ask, like, what is it? And is there anything special other than constant attention? I know that's what works for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that both you guys are hands-on always. I know that you are the enrichment in the enclosure, but your animals enrichment is outside the enclosure as well. So if somebody was to ask you, like, how do you get your animals so tame? What is your response?
I mean, I think first and foremost is building a strong foundation of giving them what they truly need to thrive and like be settled in their home without having to get out for that enrichment time. That I think that's been really helpful. And every time we've moved an animal, like upgraded to an enclosure, I've noticed their behavior shift a little bit and become a little bit more settled, a little less pacey. So yeah, like with I honestly haven't figured it out entirely, but I think it's more to do with the care provided for the animal than necessarily like anything I'm personally doing in terms of interaction with them. So Stella's a good example for that because she was, when we first brought her home in March of 23, she went into an 8x2x2 is her quarantine enclosure.
And she was already, what, 6 years old? And
she's 9 this year. So she was
8.
7.5, 8 when we got her. So she was still, she was already at that 12-foot long length. And when she was in that smaller enclosure, she would pace a lot. She would like bump the plexiglass with her nose a ton. She would come out hot pretty regularly. As soon as I moved her to the bigger enclosure, she still hasn't come out hot. Like she's never struck in that enclosure. So it was just an interesting observation to see kind of that behavioral shift. And I don't know if it's to do necessarily with the space or if the space just provides a better gradient so she can self-regulate a little bit easier. Like there's so many factors, it's hard to pinpoint it. But I mean, this, when it comes to retics, they will use every inch of space you offer them. Yeah. So, and I think that does make a huge difference in care. Like if you want a docile, tractable, interactive, reticulated python, give them space in their enclosure so they're chill when you want to interact with them, because otherwise you're just going to have a hyper retic, and that can be a little bit harder to work with.
It's the, keeping a border collie in a 1-bedroom apartment kind of thing, right? Like it's really hard to get them the activity level that they need. Kind of a similar thing if you've got a retic in too small of a tank.
Before we go on, I just want to remind everybody in the chat, if you guys have any questions for Jody or Abby, please put them in the chat. We have Jeremy Wilcox behind the scenes with us tonight. He's helping me out. And he's my co-pilot, and I love you, man, for being here. And I thank everybody for chiming in the comments. I really appreciate everybody being here tonight and supporting all of us here. One of the questions I'm going to ask is, you and I both, right? We put out very positive content on reticulated pythons. Any off-scene stuff that happens that you're not going to put out there? For instance, I'll share with you, like I just upgraded my Soleil's enclosure. and she's become very striky. And I think it's just because she's kind of out of sorts. She's not a very big animal, and I've got her in an 8-foot enclosure now. So she's been going back and forth. I'm watching her behaviors, and if I come from behind the enclosure, like through the French doors that's right next to it, I hear her slam. So is there anything that's taken place that, if, like, for instance, like I see your animals, I just think, gosh, they are just the most loving animals anybody could ever own. But is there a story that you could tell that would kind of dispel that? You know what I mean?
I mean, I think
Or
I'm pretty
equalize them, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm pretty transparent in terms of, like, usually I don't include those kinds of things on reels because I feel like there's enough people out there who share the strikes, that share the bites, that share the feeding. I'm like, we don't need more of that. We all know snakes eat. We all know how they eat. We all know sometimes they can bite. I will oftentimes, like the last time this dude got me, I went live on Instagram just to show people how I work with them after the fact when they're still a little like, crazy after biting you, and how to get them out of that and clean them off if they need to. And then I shared a little bit more detail on the biggest bite I've ever took, which was from April. It was a food bite back in April. And I shared a little bit more in detail on that on my YouTube. So it's one of those things, like, just being honest, like anything with teeth can bite. And as docile and wonderful as these animals are, sometimes they do make mistakes, and sometimes they will get you. And I don't love them any less when that does happen. It's just a matter of being able to respond to it versus react.
Yeah, for sure. I took my first food bite less than a month ago. And it was from Centauri. And Centauri is, I adore her. She is actually the first of our snakes that I got out of her tank kind of on my own without Abby even in the room. Like that's how kind of strong a relationship I have with her. And essentially the story of this food bite was, it was the morning we were leaving for my brother's wedding. So we had to kind of like do kind of our morning chores. We were getting everybody fresh water and stuff like that before we had to head out to the airport. And I was changing the baby's water in that room while Abby had Centauri out over here and was just getting her some fresh air and stuff. And because she had been out already that morning, I made the mistake of thinking, oh, she was fine, she was chill. And I just needed to change the batteries on her little Wi-Fi temperature sensor. And where are you going? And he keeps crawling towards the breakable things. And so I assumed she was still just fine and chill because she'd been out that morning. I went to go put the sensor back in the tank, and she just food chomps me right on the side of my wrist. And it was as soon as it happened, like my first thought was not, ouch, that hurts. My first thought was not, oh God, why does she do this? My first thought was simply, well, that was stupid of me, right? Like I know what I need to do in order to properly approach her. And I was just in a rush and doing stuff in the morning, and I didn't. And I made that kind of careless mistake. And sure enough, it turned around and bit me on the wrist.
It's the mistakes that'll get you, not the snakes.
Yeah, exactly. So, we'll be certainly very transparent about moments like that, because I think it's a really important learning moment, right? Like for me, this was like a duh. Of course, like I stuck my hand in a snake's tank when the lights were off. She didn't know where I was. She didn't know that I was there. I saw her the hole. She didn't know what was going on. Of course, that's when it happened. And that's entirely on me. And that's an important learning moment. And, like bites to a hand, they take a little bit. Like you got connective tissue in there and stuff like that. It gets a little swollen, takes a while to go down. Like if you can avoid that, I say go for it. Like learn from my mistakes for sure.
But in 5 years of keeping retics, I can honestly say I've never taken a bad bite. I've had a couple of defensive bites, like, hey, I'm not ready for this. I don't want to come out. Not listening, not reading body language, and being tagged. But I've never taken a food response bite. And I don't know if you guys would want to do this, but I would like you to kind of walk through that if you've been through that. The reason I ask is because there's a lot of people that don't understand what to do if you have a reticulated python locked on you. I'd be one of those people. I'm still probably going to scream, like, and that's the worst thing you can do is freak out and pull away. And if you've been bitten like that, if you've had a food response by it, walk us through what it's like to disengage the animal from you safely and calmly.
I mean, so when April's 9 feet, and she got me, it was kind of intentional because I was just making sure she didn't eat her boyfriend that was in there with her. So
Abby took one for the team on that.
Yeah.
One.
But she's 9 feet. I think she's around 12 or 15 pounds. But she's like the worst one to get bit by because she punches you with her face. Like she just slams. She is a launcher,
yeah. Sure.
She slams whenever she thinks there's food involved, she will slam her face into it. So as soon as I saw her like go for her meal, I was like, well, crap. So I kind of leaned into it, which I think helps. It's definitely better than trying to pull away from it if you already know they're going to get you. And then like she bit, she wrapped. I was like, all right, well, you're coming out with me because you're stuck on my arm now. And she got me right in that wrist area.
Same spot. We're consistent.
It's always the dominant hand. It's always somewhere near the thumb or the wrist. So and like when they get you, you bleed quite a bit. Like there's a lot going on for a short amount of time. So I have her on me. I was kind of like working to get her off. But before I did that, I literally just had a 9-foot retic wrapped on my arm and I was messaging him saying, hey, not an emergency, but April bit me. Can you come down around like the other door? Because I had started getting her off and she had moved on to our retic tree, but she was still very much in food mode.
Which was like right at the base of our basement stairs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was telling me to come around the back door.
So she was wrapped. I did the tail pinch thing to get her off. Honestly, just being a little patient and either pinching the tail. He used hand sanitizer, in the mouth to get Centauri off of him. When Shy, his food bit me in the past, I literally just wait because he figures it out. And honestly, and this is just for anyone who has never gotten a food bite before, one of the most like kind of ouchy moments is when they let go of you, because if their teeth are stuck in any way, they like have to like pull them out of your skin. You want
it's like undoing Velcro.
Kind of, yeah. And you want to be patient while they're getting their teeth out of you because you do not want a tooth to get stuck under your skin because that's just another level of pain in the butt later on. It'll work its way out eventually, but it's just, if you can prevent it, prevent it. So I was able to get her off of me by myself, maneuver her. She's still in food mode, and that often happens if they've food bit you. They very well could still be in food mode. So maneuvering her onto something else she can anchor on, and then stepping away, grabbing your equipment. We grabbed a tub, and a hook. Poured a little bit of water in the tub to clean off the human fluid that she had on her to help calm her down. And then she was still in food mode, so we kind of, both of us, worked her back into her enclosure. And then I wound up just feeding her that night. Like I thawed some food, gave her some food, and then she calmed down finally. But like, honestly, I feel worse for them when they make that mistake than I do for me, because it stresses them out so much more because they're so confused and they don't know what to do. So if you run into that and the animal is still like super confused, just thaw a feeder and feed them, and that will help them finish out that behavior, essentially, like follow through on it, and they're not left like, what the heck, like I'm in food mode and now I don't know how to turn it off because I don't have the kind of regular thing that happens that helps me realize that I'm not in food mode anymore.
Yeah. Now, I will admit, I'm still at the point where a lot of the things that I do that I'm a little less sure of, I try and do with Abby in the room, right? Where she will just stand in the background and kind of like tech support me, mentor me through whatever it is I'm doing. We just did this the other night, taking April out because I'm not super comfortable with her. But when I took my food bite, like I said, we were getting ready to leave. Abby was already upstairs in the shower. So she's 2 floors up, not in a position to come down and help me. So it was a little bit of like kind of trial and error on my part as well. Like I gave her a little bit of, hand sanitizer, just some squirts right around her mouth. Me thinking that hand sanitizer gets in their mouth and they're like, oh, that's gross. And they let go. And that's not really what happens, right? Like it takes a minute for them to realize, okay, I don't want to be here anymore. And then it takes them another little bit to kind of, their teeth are pointed backwards. So getting them out again is a little bit of doing. And, like we were saying, that kind of like peeling back the Velcro. And so it just took a little bit. So at first it was like I gave her a pump of hand sanitizer and she didn't let go immediately. And then my next thought at that point was, well, great, now what, right? Like, so while I was still thinking about, well, great, now what, she did let go. And at that point, I kind of just used my free hand to kind of guide her sharp end away from me and kind of back into her tank. But again, like Abby was saying earlier, a little bit of patience, letting them let go is crucial. Just take a breath. They're not going to hurt you by holding on for 30 seconds longer. Just take a breath, give them a little bit. If, try the usual things, pinch the tail, give them a hand sanitizer, or a shot of vodka, whatever you got on hand. Right. And
only if it's a German snake though. No,
Russian.
Yeah.
Right.
Russian rat snakes.
Are there Russian snakes?
Russian rat
snakes. But trying to like pry them off you, is not a good option, right? Like maybe as a last resort, if you have, a tongue depressor or a popsicle stick or something, you can try that. But it is so much better to just be patient, take a breath, let them let go on their own.
Yeah. I appreciate you guys sharing that because it's not something that we want to see on video, but yet as a reticulated python keeper, I think it's important to know, if it does happen, what's the strategy, because most people like me, I'm probably going to flinch. Like I said, I have owned reticulated pythons for some time now, and I've never taken a bad bite. And it's not about, if you take the bite, it's about when you take the bite, because eventually as a keeper, you are going to get bit, and even with the defensive bite, I understand reading my animal's behaviors. I understand letting them be. But I also understand that I can't just ignore them either because something happened. I can't let the fear overrun, my love for the animal. So I appreciate you guys sharing that with us. Now, it's interesting as the audience, right? Like the audience of Abby and Jody here. I remember when you were posting messages about guess what Jody got, right? And we didn't know what Jody had, but I kind of knew. I think you and I had messaged it back and forth. You said you got him, I think it was the rhino, the iguana, right? Or maybe there was something before that.
There was something before
we had
that.
a leopard gecko is the first
leopard gecko. That's right. So how are you like? So in my home, right? Like my wife was not a reptile keeper in any way, shape, or form, but now she owns tortoises and she owns tegus and she owns bearded dragons and geckos. And I mean, is that kind of the same? I mean, was it like, hey, honey, let's own reptiles, or hey, I'm going to own reptiles, and then the other half is going, hey, that's kind of cool, I'm going to join you?
Probably the latter. Yeah. When Abby first started really getting interested and thinking she wanted to get, our first snake, she was basically like, look, this is the thing I want to do. You don't need to be involved if you don't want to. And granted, like I held snakes before. I had a couple teachers who had, snakes in like 5th and 6th and 7th grade and stuff like that. I'd never like fed one. So like that was an area where I was kind of like brand new, but I certainly like wanted to interact with her. And well, there goes Centauri. And I certainly wanted to interact with her. And like, it was kind of as I did that more and more and more, just started to learn more about the reptile world, the reptile community. I mean, started going to like local little reptile shows and stuff like that. And that, and also just following her, my Instagram feed has turned into mostly like reptiles and like stand-up comedy, and that's it. So
it's a good life.
Yeah. So yeah, I just kind of, as I got to know more about the whole world of, what's out there in the reptile community, that's kind of when I started looking into, do I want to get another pet lizard?
All right, so let's start talking about Stella. I was completely amazed, and it was like the story of how did you do this, right? Like watching you guys allow Stella to. Well, before I go into that, why don't we talk about Stella and the process of how you came to the breeding process with Stella. I don't want to. I know there's probably everybody in this chat has probably already heard the story, but to me, it's like it was magical. It was like amazing to watch you guys do this. So, where did this thought process even start? I mean, what was it that said this is the route we're going to go?
Honestly, it was, so we had bought Centauri and Chihaya from Garrett, with the intent of like years later pairing them with Shy and Aries. And Garrett needed to place a couple of his breeding loan females other places from someone who was downsizing and had a bunch of his animals. So he asked us, he was like, hey, if you want to like play around with what it's like pairing and breeding and like hatching eggs, we have, 2 girls that I would love to place with you as a breeding loan. So we were like, okay, cool. That sounds, like a great opportunity. So we wound up with Stella and actually a different girl. Her name was Eminem. She was about the same size as Stella, but she was a lot of very defensive snake.
Yeah, a little spicier.
Yeah. So she was a little too much for my comfort zone since I'm usually working with the animals by myself. So we wound up getting April instead. So we got those 2 girls, and I talked to Garrett about what he thought about me doing maternal incubation with Stella. And he was like, great, like, give it a go. Nobody does that anymore. So,
and what was the genesis of that idea? Like, how did you arrive at that idea?
Because I'm a hippie from Oregon.
Oh, okay.
No, I really enjoy, like, I had already had an idea in my mind of how I wanted to keep her. I wanted to try bioactive for a big retic with live plants planted in the enclosure and all of the things. And with that, I don't even know why. I just thought, I was like, that'd be really cool if we could do, like, really facilitate that natural behavior and offer the support to allow her to do that if she wants to. So that's kind of where the whole, we ordered her the huge Toad Ranch enclosure, set up the different shelves with the intent of maternally incubating her. And yeah, that was kind of it. We paired her and Aries. They locked within 10 minutes of meeting each other. They wasted no time. Yeah, most of their business was done like on neutral ground. We didn't really have them in enclosures together. Like
right here, if memory serves, like right underneath her desk. Shameless.
Yeah, they have no shame. And yeah, she laid February 19th, I want to say.
Sounds right.
And then the babies hatched May 11th.
Now walk us through that process of when the eggs were hatched. Because it from our perspective, it was like you were watching them day and night, monitoring, but walk us through that. What was that like for you to allow Stella to sit on her eggs, hatch them herself, and what was your thought process? I mean, watching this happen.
So I think having an intent for how you're going to go through it. So my intent was not to micromanage her and just let nature do its thing, facilitate her to the best of my ability, and whatever was going to happen was going to happen. So it went from, okay, they locked. She could be gravid. She could reabsorb. We don't know. You know, that's always a crapshoot. But she wound up laying 30 really beautiful eggs. And I was definitely stressed because I was worried I was going to miss something or not provide her with what she needed to succeed. And then we kind of, after, I want to say like about around the 3-week mark, we kind of hit a nice rhythm and routine where I would, she relaxed into being on her eggs because first time she had a clutch before. This was the first time she was kind of allowed to keep them and incubate them herself. So she was a little bit more bucky and hesitant to interact any more than just letting me kind of peek under her hide and temp check everything and make sure, you know, she was still alive, essentially. And then I started offering her water. And that was really amazing because she started accepting it, which was really cool and made me so happy because I was worried she was going to get dehydrated because they expend so much energy creating that like humid environment for the eggs. And then it turned into kind of every other day I would offer her water. She would take a drink. I would, you know, kind of check the eggs. And then other than that, I just kind of let her do her thing and didn't really disturb her. She shed twice actually throughout her incubation period. She got residual shed all over the eggs. Didn't make a difference. They were fine. And then day 81 rolled around and I texted Garrett because I was freaking out because I'm like, oh no, what happens? Nothing's pipped yet. Like, what's going on? He's like, just trust the process. Slowly roll, calm down, essentially, which he was right because I think day 83 is when I went downstairs that morning and I was like, oh my God, little noses poking out. And it was the freaking cutest, most amazing thing. One thing that I noticed that was amazing was her second shed during that cycle was 2 days before the baby started pipping. And she actually left her nest for the first time during the day to complete that shed. And then went back onto her eggs, but instead of wrapping around them, she actually placed herself kind of off to the side. So she was still monitoring their temperature and their humidity and all of that jazz, but she was just off to the side.
And like being a heat sink for them.
Yeah.
But giving them room.
Yeah. But somehow she knew, like she was giving them kind of space to pip and hatch. And again, in my at least attempt, I wasn't super successful, but in my attempt to not micromanage the process, I let the babies do their thing. I didn't cut any eggs and they started kind of coming out of the eggs at their leisure. Each one would spend, you know, a couple of days actually in the nest with Stella before coming out completely. And then I would come down, you know, pull them out and put them in their little, you know, pre-set up nursery situation. And then we pulled the clutch after that. Stella was looking at the eggs like, where are you taking them? And then gave her, you know, kind of the stereotypical, give her a bath, remove the nest, give her a meal. And she was, you know, kind of back to her cozy self. So it was just a really amazing, like it was like hindsight, very beautifully simplistic in its natural order of operations. It was really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not something that we see.
Right.
More so, not something that we are able to walk through with you. You know, so personally, I really thank you guys for that, because I was enthralled. I really was. I was watching it, and I was just amazed, and then curious at the end how everything was going to pan out. So
Mhm.
as you said, so you didn't remove all the babies at once. It sounds like you removed maybe one or two babies at a time as they left the nest.
Yep.
Yeah, it was choice based essentially. Yeah,
Pretty
we
much.
let them. So the way that that she laid right here at kind of can't see it, but her top shelf is right here on this corner of the tank, and that's right here underneath her RHP is where her lay box was. So we kind of just, if they were just out roaming around the rest of the tank, we
just scoop them
we
up and
scooped them up when they were out exploring. But if they were still in the nest with her, we let her stay.
Like I said, for me personally, that's to own a snake like that would be like, it would be a dream. I mean, for me, it's just to have an animal that was hatched in its natural state. 99.9% breeders are pulling the eggs, incubating, and then selling, right? And you let this whole process go naturally, which is, I mean, who else is doing that? Nobody. Absolutely nobody. So it would be like to me, like a once in a lifetime opportunity to raise an animal like that. So you had 30, right? That's the number you guys said.
30.
How many do you have left?
Yeah, we had, so she laid 30 eggs. See if I remember this right. 4 of them were duds. 3 or 4 of them were like just not
Slugs,
fertilized. Yeah. And then she had 2 underdeveloped, and 1 just never, like, it was very disformed and just was kind of dead in the egg. So, yeah, so that was, she wound up 23 very healthy babies wound up hatching. So, which is, yeah, not nice about that.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
What is the plans? Is there any future plans for future breeding? Are we going to do the same naturalistic? Is this something you guys even want to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we don't really have any secret like breeding plans or ideas or anything. It's literally like,
surprised at how many people do. It's like, well, we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think our approach is a little bit different than kind of the norm. But yeah, we are. I'm hoping we'll do pairings here and there. Like they'll be very, very few and far between. But we do want to make maternal incubation kind of the standard around here, just to let the animals experience that process. Because I think if your whole intent is to keep bioactive and have that natural environment for them, it just makes sense to allow them to do everything naturally as much as you can facilitate that. So we will be pairing April O'Neil this year with one of the males from Reach Out Reptiles. And yeah, hopefully she'll take, she reabsorbed last year. We actually paired both her and Stella at the same season last year, but she wound up reabsorbing her clutch. So we'll see if she winds up going all the way this year, but that's more a Garrett wants to prove her out for genetic stripe.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna, see if we can do that. But she's also, she's got some fan club members as well. So I think, we can kind of use that same vetting process for her babies as well. That's the nice thing about working with Garrett, is he's very like open to just the different approaches. Yeah. Being like, yeah, go for it. Like, and do your thing.
We're too small of an operation to chase morphs.
Yeah.
Right. Like you just need too many animals to try and get those combinations right. So we're more kind of focused on care and personality and tractability and all of those things. Mm-hmm. So to that extent, Stella and Aries, don't get me wrong, made some really, really gorgeous babies. But what makes me, you know, has made me from day one just over the moon for the clutch has been their personalities. They're really, really wonderful animals to work with.
And how many of those babies do you have left for sale? Have you sold all that you're going to sell? The rest holdbacks, or?
No, we have
I think
7. All the males found homes very, very quickly.
yeah,
So
we
we
have
have
one holdback male, so he's still here, but
Yeah.
the rest have all sold.
Yeah. So we have seven of the girls left that are still looking for their forever home. Potentially maybe 8 at some point. One of them is Etoile, which is our one baby that hatched out with a prolapse, and she's kind of had a history of re-prolapsing several months in a row. So I'm like, okay, we need to. She's essentially on an indefinite medical hold.
Yeah, until she kind of stabilizes.
Yeah, so I want to make sure she doesn't she needs to not re-prolapse for a good 6 months to a year, and even at that point, we want to find someone who is experienced and also looking to just have a really amazing, sweet pet without intending to breed her because of that issue.
Yeah.
So but yeah, as of right now, seven ladies still looking for their forever homes.
And those are my favorite. I love the female retics. Oh my god, you got my mind spinning. Oh,
I mean, and personality, like talking about Etoile, and she came out of the egg prolapsed.
Let me see if any of them are awake.
I think Raven was awake earlier. So she came out of the egg prolapsed, so she needed to kind of get really futzed with, right? And that can't possibly be comfortable. But all of that fiddling within the first, week of kind of reinserting the prolapse and wrapping her and medicating her and, making sure that she was all good to go. At no point did she nip, did she strike, did she tag? Like, she was just so just kind of patient and sweet throughout that whole process, that, we just kind of, we really fell in love with her, and she's just such a sweet girl. And, so her ultimate care is really kind of the top priority there. But again, the personality thing, I feel like is pretty consistent across the clutch. We have a few who are a little shy, who are a little defensive, but that's about it. None of them are really super, aggressive or spicy or anything like that.
That's awesome. Now, you guys have some adult males and some adult females that you're breeding. Have you noticed any behavioral changes in the males, especially because of the time of the year that it is?
A kick up in activity level. So I think that's probably the most noticeable in Twee, who's our VPI T positive snow boa imperator.
I'm grabbing a paper towel because she's sausage.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Starburst?
Yes.
So Twee is usually kind of pretty mellow. So as soon as the weather, dipped down a little bit, temperatures cooled off a little bit, he started to all of a sudden just be right at the front of his tank, all the time. With like Aries is, if we have one of the girls out we have a couple different kind of pieces of enrichment, trees and shelves and stuff that they climb around the house. He will go and like sniff those spots, but it's hard to see a difference in activity level for him because he's super active all the time.
Yeah. He does arch against like where the girls have been, that typical boy retic, like arching behavior. But he's just as docile as he always is. Same with Twee. So this is Starburst, by the way. I just have paper towels because she ate 2 days ago. She is sausage butt, but this is her.
Little lavender snow.
Oh my goodness.
She's
available, right?
Yes. Yeah,
oh
she is.
Goodness.
She is Dad's personality. She just looks a little different.
Aries, not me.
Yeah. But yeah, she's a snow girl. She's awesome.
Beautiful.
I love her.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
She is possibly like the most outgoing snake in the clutch. That's not a low bar, but at the very least, she's in the top 5. She is so personable.
But you can see, like, she's not head reactive.
Yeah. Jeremy.
ISI.
I don't know how many times I've said it's the last one, and Jeremy's in there making circus comments about me and my last one comment. It's always the last one. I'm not getting any more. But when you add an Asian water monitor to the equation, it really does say, okay, yeah, maybe this is the last one.
Yeah, I used to stop and think, monitors are a whole.
They're a lot.
You got to start thinking about which room they're going to take over.
Yeah. Are you full tummy, babe?
So a couple more questions. My first question is going to be really, I think it's really cool that you guys are involved with Reach Out Reptiles. And I don't know if that's something you want to talk about, but how did that come about? You know, I know that I think you were helping out there, and I think I'm correct me if I'm wrong. I think you might be their social media person now. Is that correct?
I was for a while. I'm not helping out there anymore because I started traveling for work again.
And grad school.
Yeah. So, but yeah, for one season, I was taking like photos of babies and helping out with their Instagram and stuff like that. I haven't been doing that for, about a year now.
Yeah.
Okay. Is when I stopped doing that. So it's been a while. But yeah, I mean, we started doing Pre-Tick Fest last year.
Mm-hmm.
You can let her crawl on you, but she might pee on you.
All right.
Because she's full.
Yeah, kind of the pre-party before Re-Tick Fest we started throwing.
Do you want to go back?
It's honestly very coincidental that, you know, our house is 25 minutes from Reach Out Reptiles. And that really is just totally coincidental. Basically, we used to live in Baltimore and we were looking for a little bit more space. We weren't finding it in Baltimore City, so we expanded to Baltimore County. We didn't find it there either. Or we just kept getting beaten out with people coming in with cash offers and just making it rain. So we expanded our search a little bit more to a little bit, you know, east and west, and then into Pennsylvania, and then out to western Pennsylvania. And we just happened to find this house that we really love that happens to be, 25 minutes from Reach Out Reptiles. And so, you know, I feel like we've really lucked out that we happen to be in this area where there's just an awful lot of reticulated python expertise, you know, and if Abby's, you know, away on work and I need help with, you know, one of our larger animals, I can text, you know, G.I. Joe and be like, hey, can I, you know, give you a beer and bribe you to come help me with it?
Give you a beer and put you to work.
So it's we're very fortunate that there's so much knowledge that we happen to be friends with.
Yeah, it's been a really nice support system. And in terms of like the breeding females and stuff, that was just kind of like happenstance. Like we weren't actively looking to do that, honestly, at that point, but you know, the opportunity arose, and like, you know, Stella and April still both belong to Garrett, but they're here indefinitely.
Yeah.
Like we told Garrett, like they can, you know, if they want to retire here, they are more than welcome. So we enjoy having them. They're lovely animals.
What a way to gain experience, though. I mean, that is such a great way, and to have that at your disposal is amazing. So I'm going to ask you guys real quick, like, if there's anything that you could share with anybody who watches this podcast about keeping reticulated pythons, if you could give one piece of advice, what would that be?
Be prepared for more interaction than you could possibly imagine with a snake. They are high maintenance animals.
I think that's a good one. The one I will throw out there is that when you are planning how much room you need for a retic, tank height is probably as important, if not more so, than tank length or width. You know, like this is Aries' tank right here, and it's, you know, it's 4 feet tall, and he's not an enormous snake, but Lordy, does he use every inch of that space. And if he were in a 6 foot wide but 2 foot tall, I think he would go bonkers. He would just be bouncing off the walls.
Yeah, and it also obviously depends on the animal. Like some animals won't climb as much. So, I mean, in terms of enclosure setup and size, really just catering to what the animal needs rather than necessarily what you want. Like I have some snakes on paper. I don't like keeping on paper, but that's what they need. So that's what they get. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw Creative asking who
babysits Cogs.
Cogs babysits himself. He needs no sitter. Come on, Elias. You should know that. Cogs is our scrub python for anyone watching who's like, who the heck is Cogs? He has his own personality profile that, albeit I have placed upon him. I still think it's pretty accurate, though.
I was going to say, he's earned some of it.
Yeah.
There was... I will tell a funny story about Cogs, though, because it was the time that I was babysitting him. And so Cogs really, really likes to just hang out in his water bowl. He spends so much time in there. And there was one morning that Abby was in Baltimore for work. I was taking a couple of our animals to a school for an educational program. And that morning, Cogs had also pooped in his water bowl.
He doesn't do that when I'm home. No,
not at all. So here I am needing to like get all of the other animals situated, like feed all of the mammals because we have 2 dogs and a cat. Well, right. Feed the animals, get everybody packed up, you know, get the car cooled down, you know, and hit the road. And now I'm trying to both, you know, clean out his water bowl and get him fresh water. But also like I have to do this in Cogs time because you can't just quickly run into his tank real quick and get his water bowl because he has opinions about things like this. So that's what it's like babysitting Cogs.
That's awesome. I watched you guys with your scrub, and it's like I every time I go to a reptile show, which I'm at one this weekend, if I see a carpet or a scrub, I'm like, you know, maybe there is room for one more, you know, but I have not acted on it. You guys have amazing enclosures back there. You really set the bar for people and, you know, how to take care of a reticulated python. You really do.
So speaking of Stella.
And come all the way out. She's been super periscoping the last 2 weeks. So come on, say hi, everybody.
No, we appreciate the kind words about the tanks. You know, how the level of husbandry that we're able to offer our animals is really important to us. And, you know, we don't get more animals if we can't be offering the ones that we have the level of care that we really want. And so that's really important to us.
Yeah, I think that's extremely important. That's extremely important. And I think that one of the things that the way that you guys offer the husbandry that you're able to provide, I think that's important to take a look at if you're ready to take a step and own something like a reticulated python. I mean, this is a testament right here. Seeing your enclosures here. I remember when this was an empty room. I remember when you guys were doing the floor and the painting and all that stuff. Yes, the building of the enclosures. I remember all of that stuff. To see it go from what it was, what you guys moved into, to what you have now is amazing. It's amazing.
Some of that, by the way, is Shy, who we had out earlier. He was, 3 months old, I think, 4 months old when we moved here. He was real young.
3 months, yeah.
Yeah, 3 months.
Yeah, he was a tiny, tiny baby.
And within the first week, this floor down here, which is now tiled, this floor was carpeted when we first moved in. And within the first week, Shy peed on it. So we were like, we should, before we put a bunch of tanks in, we should just get rid of this carpet because it's going to be a thing real fast.
Yep.
So that was part of the inspiration for that.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I tell you what, you guys are amazing to watch. I really appreciate the friendship that I get from both of you. Um, if there's anything, final words about anything that I like to, anything about USARC. I know Abby, you and I have done USARC videos before. Is there anything about USARC that you would like to put out there?
I think the thing that impresses me the most is the extent to which they keep their thumb on the pulse of everything.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a hearing about an hour and a half from here, like 2 towns over from where our biggest kind of local expo is. And they were proposing an animal ban. And by the time I got there, there was a line of people out the door. I could not even get into the hearing room. And I found out later that Phil Goss was at the front of the front table in that hearing room, had gotten there hours before. I'm like, how? I live here. How did you beat me to it? Like I'm always so impressed by just how on the ball they are and really tuned into what's important. And I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and it was nice because I had a class that I could not miss that evening. So kind of having a team that can go when you're not able to is important. And I think, both Phil and Jody, you're an example of that, because I would have loved to go, but I just couldn't. So yeah, I think it kind of offers a community that offers that support, which is nice.
Yep. No one person can do everything.
Yeah. So this weekend, I'm actually at the San Luis Obispo Reptile Expo. I'm here with Vanessa. I am doing more, I call it work in the trenches. You know what I mean? Vanessa has sent me everything that I need. She gets me a table, and I go to the local shows around here and I set up booths for USARC. And all I do is I get to talk to people about USARC for 2 days. And that's what I'm doing this weekend. I think it's what more of us should get involved in doing, because I think it's an integral part of owning reptiles. I mean, that's just me. I'm very passionate about USARC. I believe in USARC, and that's why I do the work that I do for USARC. So you guys have been amazing, and I appreciate you guys taking your time out of your evening. Everybody that joined in, we didn't get any questions, but you guys are pretty transparent about what you do. You share your life with us on social media, and I truly appreciate that. So you guys, thanks again. That's all I've got, unless you guys got anything else.
No, we appreciate the support as well, and the amount of people that were invested. I don't think I realized the amount of people that were invested in Stella's MI journey, and I'm glad I didn't, because otherwise that would have made it much more intense, because I would have been worried about disappointing not only Stella but like everyone else.
No, it was a beautiful thing to watch,
Yeah.
a beautiful thing to witness, and I mean, from start to where you guys are at now. Babies are born. You're on the other side, and possibly even planning a new pairing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but in the meantime, we just get to hang out with, at this point, they're 5-month-old baby rechicks, and it's a fun age.
Yeah,
right? They're too little to do any damage, so you just get to socialize them and get them lots of attention, and I think that amount of just playtime that we have with them is a really great thing. Like the feedback that we've gotten from all of their the humans who have adopted them has been that they're just super chill, super easy, very interactive, and that's why we do it. So yeah, I think it's really gratifying.
Yeah, it's been incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, I think Nicole Tisdale, Lady Tiz Exotics, she said it best. You guys display it as she said it. I get to come home to my own personal little jungle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's there. It is right there, right behind you guys. And I very much appreciate what you give to us as the community. I also want to thank Jeremy Wilcox. Let me bring him in real quick. Jeremy in the dark for controlling the banner, taking care of the comments, being my co-pilot on this. I really, really appreciate you. And that's all I got, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us. And we will see you next time on Retic Rant. Let me tell you what's going on before we end this. Women Rocking Retics is coming back November 16th. Let me just make sure that is the right date. November 16th, 2024. We have Women Rocking Retics. I'm going to try and remember who I got. I've got Jennifer Valentine from Mod Exotics.
Nice.
I've got Katie from the Retic Mama.
Yep.
Marissa Cardoza, MC Tails and Scales, and Hannah. I can't remember her last name, but her first name's Hannah, and I have to go look. Tune in, check it out. Women Rockin' Retics, 6:30 p.m. Pacific time on November 16th. We'll see you there, you guys. Thanks to everybody for joining in. We appreciate you.
Very cool. Thanks so much for having us.